So I get an opportunity. There's one that comes in and decoys and
Yep.
it's by himself. And Garrett says, somebody get out there and shoot it. So I'm on the right hand side. It's closest basically to me. So I'm like, I'll shoot it. So I get out there and hello and welcome back to the Banner Tree podcast. We're sitting here in February, and I've got a confession to make. We are late on our episode, and there's a couple of reasons why we had that. January being the end of waterfowl season, we say this. It seems like we say this every year, but man, we hunted hard.
We did.
We put in a lot of time towards the end of the season, and really, for myself personally, I had the best season that I've ever had, and that's kind of odd for some people who would, who'd probably say different, especially might have said it was their worst season just because of the way the weather patterns were this year. And but I did a little bit of traveling. We can talk about that later. But it was one of my best ones. But we put in a lot of time at the end of January and didn't really have a whole lot of time to record this podcast. And
the time got away from us. A lot of things were happening, and we were trying to get out there as much as we can. Both working full time and full time schedules. Sometimes it's difficult. We got a couple Saturday hunts. We got to travel to Arkansas. We like you said, we had a bunch of experiences but we're late. We are sitting dead in the first week of February, but we're gonna get this out as quick as we can to for those faithful listeners. We're so thankful to have all you guys who have listened throughout the years, and if today is your first time listening to us, man, we're just so thankful to have you as a listener.
Yeah, absolutely. And to kick off this podcast, we usually do a scripture, and I got one for us today. It's Psalms 46:1. My mic's messing up here. Hold on. All right, so it's Psalms 46:1. The interesting thing about this one is we had two friends in Virginia who actually killed Jack Miner bands this year, and both of those bands had this scripture on there, and it was Psalms 46:1. God is my refuge and strength, an ever-present help in time of need. And so that kind of strikes a chord, especially around this time of year for us and what we've kind of went through the last couple of weeks. We unfortunately lost our former senior pastor here at Lifeline Church, Dr. Ray Hurt, and he was a spiritual figure and a father figure to a lot of young men and women around here. And he married my wife and I, and he's been he was a great help in our marriage and in my life. I've been coming to this church for, I think, going on 18 years now, and it was a hard, tough thing, but we know he's in a better place, and it was a little bit easier pill to swallow knowing that he's on the other side and he's in way better place now, and he preached about death so much, and where he's at. So he's basking in the glory of God right now, and we're happy for that. And so, kind of going back to this verse, the thing that strikes me here is it starts out with God is. It tells us this mysterious being, God is. He's refuge, he's strength, he's ever present, and he's help.
Absolutely.
And the thing that stands out the most to me about this is that refuge is a place, refuge sometimes is a place of hiding, and it's a place where you go to have a safe place. And he is that, but he's also strength, he's ever present, and he's help. And whenever I think of help, like I've got help coming to move some furniture this week, and it's not that I've got people coming to do it for me, it's that I've got somebody coming to help me with it. So I'm part of that. We're working as a team with that. And so help here is he wants to be with you. He wants to see you through that, and he's also providing you strength to get through those hard times. And so these are somewhat hard times for us, and we'll get through those. And God is our refuge. He is our strength. He's present now. He's present later. He's present then. And he's our help in our time of need.
Yeah, I love it. It's that he's ever present, which means he's always there. And that word refuge, I think, can speak to us a lot. Even in waterfowling and hunting, you go to the refuge.
Yeah.
And it's a place where the birds will literally fly in. They're safe there. They're secure. There's food. There's shelter, basically, for them. There's no pressure on them in that point. It's just a place, and you'll see them just pile in there of the morning and night, or maybe even loafing during the day. And so when I think about this and put the scripture to it, God is our ever-present help in time of need. He's our strength. He's our safety. And, with the passing of Dr. Hurt, he's a mentor of mine. I spent 30 years of my life with him. I came to this church or to Lifeline Church at the place where I pastor when I was 11 years old. And so, his wisdom has spoken to me, and I had to preach part of the funeral and be there at the graveside, and, all those things. So it is definitely a comfort to know that God is our refuge and strength and our ever-present help in time of need and trouble. He's always there. And, when the passing of someone comes, I think it always gets back to our mortality, that life's short. And I would be amiss even for for the listeners out there. Life is short. James says it's a puffer, a vape of smoke, here today and gone tomorrow. So anytime the passing of someone close to you happens, it's like, what am I doing with my life? What do I need to adjust? What are the conversations I need to have with people who maybe don't believe in the Lord? It gives me an opportunity to say, heaven's real,
Yeah.
and I want you to go with me.
Right.
So there's only one door, and it says Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through him. So Jesus is the way. So maybe you're listening out there, you're watching on YouTube or whatever, and you thought you're going to just hear about hunting, but the reality is a relationship with Jesus Christ is what gives you access to eternity on the other side in heaven. And so I would encourage you to make that decision. Shoot us a message, an email, or make a comment. We'd love to lead you in that prayer or help guide and direct you in any way.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a platform that we can spread that word, and thankful today that he's a refuge, he's a strength, he's ever present, and that he's a help. So,
the other thing I would say too, for those of you who might not know what a Jack Miner band is, that's pretty holy grail. Jack Miner. I mean, he was the pioneer of banding migratory waterfowl. I mean, I think it started in 1909 actually, and he started banding even before the government started banding. That's kind of part of the story. He actually did it, I think it's a decade before that. And so he has this bird sanctuary where he started banding. He wanted to track migration even back then. And so he always put a scripture on it. And it's just something, so as those waterfowl migrate, if you get a Jack Miner band, it's pretty special. And it's pretty awesome that right here in Virginia, we actually saw the bands and we were able to congratulate those guys who got it.
Yeah, and it was double banded mallards.
Oh,
one was a hen. The first one I found out about was a hen, and the other one was a Drake mallard, and double banded. So they were banded in, I believe they were both in Ontario.
Yep.
And then I had the Jack Miner band on that as well. So, it's the banded retrieve, baby, and it's living strong here in Southwest West Virginia. So, that's a good word, and it's always nice to have those discussions. But today I want to talk a little bit about the last time we left you. We were on our way to Arkansas to do a hunt. It's the first time that you and I have been in the famous capital of the world of waterfowl in Arkansas, and we had a little bit of a unique trip, which we always do. We always come back with great stories, and this particular one was very unique, I think. In some ways.
Absolutely. It started out with our travel south. So we had ended up, I think it was a 12-hour trek. So we broke it up in 2 days, and we had to stop at Buc-ee's. I mean Buc-ee's more than once, to get some snacks
and use the bathroom
and use the restroom in the best room. they do it the best. So you want a clean restroom, you stop at Buc-ee's, and they don't pay for that advertisement. It's just a great place to stop.
Yeah.
And so we stopped at Buc-ee's and headed on down and.
Stopped in Carthage, a place where we go and fish, and had our buddy Neil there at the Budget Inn in Carthage. So shout out to old Neil, and we got to stay there that night. And so kind of backing up, we got this trip set up by a friend of ours, Phil Sigmund. And he goes to the church here. Never been waterfowl hunting before.
Never.
And so I was excited to be a part of that and be a part of his first experience duck hunting, because I just know. I mean, anybody who's listening right now who's never duck hunted before, we talked about it a couple episodes ago, deer versus duck. Duck will win.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that here in a minute. But old Phil, he got it set up for us, and so we're heading on our way to Commander's Corner.
Yeah, we went to Commander's Corner in duck hunting capital of the world. We ended up we were kind of late booking, so it ended up that we found Commander's Corner, which was a great place to go. It's in Wilmot, It's actually right on the border. I mean, I think we were like 0.5 of a mile from the Louisiana border also. So we were right there on the border of Arkansas and Louisiana. And what you have to know about this, if you're a waterfowl hunter, you know that down south there wasn't much water. They were in a severe drought. So even the refuge there, which is one of the biggest refuge from what I understand, I think this actually blind was voted one of the best in Arkansas. But there was no water in the refuge. I mean, it was close to 9 to 10 foot down, and so there was no water in the refuge. So we get down there, and we know that it seems like migration hasn't happened to the fullest. Those guys were incredible. As we came in, the amenities there were great. On-site chef who did a fantastic job.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, it was some of the best food we've ever had. Nice quarters.
Outside of an outfitter.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was some of the best food I've ever had.
Yeah, he did a fantastic job.
Yeah, and we're foodies. I mean,
yeah.
I like to eat.
Absolutely.
Obviously, but I mean, it was, dude. I mean, it wasn't just on a hunt type food. Like it was. This was some of the best food you'll ever have. So
yeah, and those guys treated us right. I mean, they just basically came in and they said, "This is what we recommend, but it's your guys' experience. This is your hunt. We're here for you. We're servants for you guys."
Yeah, they said the comment that they made that stuck with me is you're renting our facilities for the weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, this is whatever is ours is yours. That
Absolutely.
You've paid for this. We'll do whatever you want to do. We'll go wherever you want to go, and we'll set you up however you want to set up.
Right.
And that means something for us because we're not. I guess we're maybe not some of the typical guys who will go out and pay for a waterfowl hunt. We do this on our own quite a bit.
Yep.
We have some experience and knowledge behind some of it. We're not, a corporate group coming just to shoot birds and have a good time.
Yeah.
We're hunters, so we like to get educated by those who've done this even more than we have.
Absolutely.
And get that full experience. So that meant a lot to you and I
Absolutely.
as we went in there. And so I was happy to hear some of that. So that night that we got there, we got everything packed up or taken out and got settled in at dinner time. And the lead the lead guide came out and was telling us, hey, ducks aren't looking very good.
Yeah.
We've got a good place for goose. We've got some specs in there. You and I wanted to get on some specs.
Yeah, I never killed a speck.
Yep, me neither. I killed some snows in Canada, but the spec was awesome and appealing to me. And
Absolutely.
so he's like, oh, we got geese and at that point, he really hadn't really given us the cue that it's like when he says he's got geese, he's got a lot of birds.
Yeah.
And so it was, I think there were like at least 12 to 15 guys that were there, one group of 6 to 8, and then there was another group, a 3-pack, and then there was us that were 3.
Yeah.
So they were putting the 2 3s together, and then the other group was doing their own thing. And so we had just met the guys, and these guys were great guys from South Carolina.
Yeah.
And so he's starting to give us, the talk about this. And so he's telling us he's got geese.
Yeah.
Well, the group from South Carolina, they've never killed a mallard before.
Yeah.
And so they wanted to kill a mallard in Arkansas. This was their third trip
absolutely.
out here, and they hadn't killed a mallard, which is so surprising.
Yeah.
And that's not knocking on any outfitter out there. It's just the past few years just haven't been that great.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're like, oh, we're here to hunt ducks, and that's what we want to do. And so you and I are struggling. I mean, it's a struggle.
Oh man, if you've ever been in that situation, but what happens is like, man, you come there, and we wanted to kill ducks. I mean, that's kind of what we wanted to do. But when you get there, this is a rule of thumb. We've lived by it. We've died by it at times. If the guide is trying to encourage you to go do something, typically, especially for those guys, they know what they're doing. They're there every day. If they say the ducks might not show up, that means they're not coming.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
they want to give you some hope, but we've learned it the hard way.
Yeah, and so they were like, there is a massive feed of we've got the X. We're on the X for geese. You need to go there.
Yeah.
And finally, back and forth. Phil didn't care.
It was like 2 hours though. I mean, we
yeah.
contemplated this. It was not an easy decision.
Yeah, and Phil, he's the new guy, so he was like, whatever you guys want to do, I'm perfectly fine with. So me and you finally were like, man, we're going to trust the guide. We want to trust the guide, and so we made the decision that we're going to the field. And I'll tell you the other thing that helped is that some of the other they would be like assistant guides. They didn't necessarily take out some groups by themselves, but they were there just in case. And they were like, "We're going tomorrow." We saw them, and so we were like,
"Old Paul," he says. You'd be stupid not to go goose hunting tomorrow. So it was like that. That gave us the edge over top of it. And you know, part of my decision making was the other group had 2 dogs.
Yeah.
And so Garrett's telling me, Garrett's the lead guide who's telling us all this, and Garrett's telling me, he's like, you know, we got 2 dogs. We're going to try to encourage somebody to leave one at home. Well, the other guys weren't leaving their dog at home.
Right.
Same as me, man. We've come 12 or 13 hours. This dog's made this trip with me.
Absolutely.
I'm going to take him with me. And so anyway, I'm like, so I'm actually like more inclined to go duck hunting.
Yeah.
And then you, thankfully, were like, no, we need to, like we said, we need to trust the guide. I'm like, all right, man, well, let's figure it out. So the other guys are like, not leaving our dogs. Garrett finds out, he's like, hey, we're going to have one in the left, one on the right, one in the middle.
Yep.
And we'll work them like that. And I was fine with, I have a new Dakota decoy blind
which
for
is
pasture,
great.
And you'll see some of that on our episodes. And it keeps the dog at bay. There's a gate on it, and it's spring loaded and opens up, whatever. And so I'm like, I'm good with keeping pasture at bay as long as I need to let your dogs work. And I just want him out there.
Yeah.
Just want the experience. So anyway, we were like, okay, let's do this. Well, then we find out from Paul they've got birds. Then he shows us the video, and it's we made the right decision.
We're on it's the X, if there ever was an X. And basically the awesome thing is they scout every day, which is what every good guide will do. And they had just got permission on this farm. So that's the other benefit. It had never been hunted before. And there was no other hunters all season on this farm. So all these geese are piling up in there from morning to afternoon. I mean, and there is a pile of them, from speckled bellies to a blue goose to snows. And so it was the right decision to make it.
Yeah,
so.
And kudos to those guys for doing their homework. And they knew there's not birds around, and they find this place that's like a mile from camp.
Yeah.
And I just, kind of reiterate the fact this wasn't their land.
Yeah.
They went up and asked for permission for this place, and they got that permission. And so they found the birds for us. They did their job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, now looking back on it, and we'll get into the story, but looking back on it, we might not have killed anything.
Oh,
it's just where the birds were wanted to be. So,
absolutely.
So this made our hunt. So we'll proceed. I mean, we get up at, I think it was like they had already went out and set up decoys at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh yeah, everything was set up. We were ready to go. They had. We ended up. I think there was close to 15 guys in the blind. I mean, by the time it was all, because the guides, that group.
There were 9 hunters.
Yeah, and I
think they had 4, so 13, 14 people.
Yeah, and what they did is they had an A-frame blind for us, so we were like beside another fence row of blinds that they had made. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so we get there, we get set up, they have it all ready for us. We basically get down there and get locked in, and shooting light comes, and it was actually a little slow. I mean, like shooting light comes, and geese sometimes are slow off the roost, which is typical. We experience that even here. But as the sun started to come up, those birds started to fly. I mean, they started flying.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and so we had I don't know, I'm not familiar with the farm terms, but we had like corn silos to our right, and then we were set up on like an island of trees and really good hide, and so they start coming in, like groups of 10, 15s. Yeah. We start to see some of those, and then we start getting 2s and 3s that are breaking off and coming down in them, and dude, we start shooting, and it's you get that first shot, and it's just like pressure off.
Oh, yeah.
Pressure off. Here we go, baby.
Yep.
And so it was I'm all the way on the right, Pastor's on my right, then we got Phil that's to my left, and then you. So we had sandwiched Phil in between us, and so we get that first shot. I'm like, boom. I'm like, Phil, what do you think, man? What do you think? He's like, this is good. This is good.
That's good.
And so then here comes more. I mean, and like again, like going back to hunting around here, you might get that one shot, and that's all you get the rest of the day. You might get a couple of them, but generally, like, you're not going to get shots within 5 minutes of each other here. So these are coming 5 minutes at a time.
Oh, they're working. I
Yeah.
mean, they're coming group by group, big groups, straight lines. I mean, we're like, man, we are on the X. I mean, we're fist bumping. We're doubling up shots. I mean,
Yeah. And the good part is they're coming in from the right.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We're on the right hand
Oh
side
yeah,
of the blind.
it was beautiful.
So we're getting first shots. You
Oh
know?
yeah,
So,
and they're falling, and we're
Yeah,
hitting good.
folding 'em, baby.
We're shooting well. We've got videos of that. I mean, there's
yeah.
some incredible shots. And then two speckle bellies end up coming, and the speckle bellies come, and they were juveniles. They didn't have the bar bellies, but we ended up getting two specks down, and that was awesome to see and to be able to experience that new species.
Almost like a pheasant.
Yeah.
And we got a little video of that, and me horse laughing, just
Oh,
having
yeah.
a good time with it. But then so then we have I mean, like, they're just falling down from the sky. If you've never been in a goose hunt like this, I mean, they're different levels, stratosphere all the way down, and then they kind of, not that they're like working around like circular, like tornado wise.
Yeah.
They're dropping straight down.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, just cupped up and just straight down and wanting to land straight down. And like, dude, it was just an experience that we've never had before.
Oh yeah.
And so we're just loving it. I'm getting amped up, dude. I'm like, let's go.
Oh
baby.
yeah, it's awesome.
And
I mean, and we're probably 45 minutes into the hunt. There's over 20 birds down.
Yeah.
I mean, and mostly snows, but it is awesome. Bees fired up. We're all fired up.
Yeah.
And there's some
get
videos of
audibly
that. Yeah.
fired up. Just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, and then it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I think that would be the quote that I would say. Our guide gets a phone call.
Yeah.
And fun ceased.
Yeah.
No. I mean, the birds were coming in, and we couldn't shoot. And ends up, the farmer was on the phone, and his wife loved those geese, I guess. Yeah. And she said I think she really thought that the decoys were dead birds, and we had hundreds of birds that were out there, and so she said for us to stop.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the owner of Commander's Corner went and talked to the farmer, and he was in hot water. If Mama's not happy, nobody's happy.
Yeah.
And so we ended up having to pack up.
Yeah, and we were in limbo there for like 10 minutes, and like when I first saw Garrett on the phone, I thought it was Harrison. I'm like, who else would you answer the phone for while you're having this much fun?
Oh yeah,
Boss man.
Oh yeah.
So we find out it's not the right call that you want, and so he's like, oh yeah, we're gonna try to get boss man on him. Couldn't sway him.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, we've always said, and we get some flack on social media about some of this, and really nobody knows the full story, but it's not our land.
No, it's not.
You're the farmer has put blood, sweat, and tears into
Absolutely.
that land. They put finances into that land. It is their life, and that's their living, and you can't say nothing about it. We had a great time while it lasted. But unfortunately, if the cards fell that way that day, and but really, while we were in that limbo, that 10 minutes or so, got to unleash the beast on Pastor, and Pastor was ready to roar on that one, and so he he got out there and showed off a little bit, and it was great time, and
he retrieved about every bird.
Did some great retrieves, and it was one of those things where he's hunted this year. A lot of it's been over water. We've done one other goose hunt that was on land, and I enjoy working them on land. We train 95% of the time on land.
Yeah.
So he's used to that, and we, got to cast him a little bit and really open him up. There were some wounded birds down that he got to chase and loves that.
Yeah.
Loves bigger birds in general, and to see him with a snow goose, different species for him, and a speck, different species for him. A Ross, we got, and then there's a blue goose that we ended up getting, and so that one ended up being one that we sailed. Didn't get the greatest of shot on him, And so he goes out 200 yards.
Oh, every
I
bit
mean,
of
it was way out there. And so we see him. He kind of banks off and comes left, and then he's just like he's dead before he hits the ground. I mean,
Yeah.
but he like just buries himself way out where the corn stops and in the green pasture. And so during that time of that downtime, and like we can take him out and run
Yeah.
a little blind on it. And so that's what we did, and it ends up being an eagle head or blue goose,
Yep.
what they'll call them an eagle head, and it was a beautiful bird.
Oh, it was awesome.
And so that one was memorable for me and Pastor just because it's such a long retrieve, and so on that one I joked around. I talk about this, but I joked around with Garrett, and I'm like, of course I know like a tracker, you get a band's a trophy, but
Yeah.
a tracker,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, it's a little box. It's got like a solar. It almost looks like a little solar panel on top of it. I assume that's how it
it's
powers.
basically it's a geo tracker that is either solar with battery powered. Usually they last I think around 3 years, and usually they're strapped to the bird with some kind of like band that lets the bird fly and everything, but you can actually track it where he's at all times.
Yeah, and so I joked around with him because I knew everybody was on 10, everybody's amped up. So I'm like, I get back and I'm like, Garrett, what's this little plastic piece that's glued to its back?
Yeah.
And his face, like all of his color goes out
Yeah.
of his face, and his mouth drops open. He's like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, this little plastic thing, it's glued to his back. And so he's like starting to trot towards me. I'm like, I'm just joking.
I'm just
man."
kidding. Yeah. So what we would say too, I think you named this on YouTube. It was the greatest hunt
That never was.
that never was.
The greatest hunt that never was. And you know, it might take some time and try to make a little video out of that. We've posted a lot of shorts from it.
Absolutely.
Really hammering some birds, but it was still yet one of the greatest hunts I've ever been on. I mean,
absolutely.
if we would have stayed there, it would have been the greatest that I've ever been on.
Absolutely, and we had a great time. And again, Commander's Corner, we'd definitely go back there at any time. They put us right on those specs, and on the snow geese, they did their job. We had a great time, great experience, and just always commendable for a guide. And Harrison did a great job. It's a great place to go. So if you're heading to Arkansas, maybe this next season, just tell them we sent you, and we'd love to make that connection with you. But I guess this is all the time we have for this episode, and we'll come back, and I'm sure we'll talk more about Arkansas. We had some more memorable moments, but for that, we love you guys, and I hope you have a great beginning of February, and talk to you soon.